What's up, my ninjas? I'm Strident, and before I get into the review, I just want to take a second to talk about some of what I got for my birthday. This year, my birthday was September 1st. It was a really chill day. I ended up working. I was in training, so I just worked the whole day. Lunchtime, I went to Big Fun, and I picked up that Clash of the Titans Perseus and the Sam Raimi Spider-Man Green Goblin. And then, and what's his name right there? Checkpoint from Cops. And then I had ordered some the Manga Spawn or Cyber Spawn version 2 a while ago, and he came in on my birthday, which is pretty dope. And then my wife got me the True Heroes sub, which is something I've been looking at for a long time. But I was just like, I need to do reviews of all this stuff. I've got this huge backlog of reviews that I'm going to do. Some of them I'm getting out of the way in this review. But I wanted to just give you guys a heads up. It was kind of a fun day coming home to all that after such a mundane, day at work. But yeah, the NECA Perseus is an awesome figure. The movie was like meh, but the designs, and this is something that I find with a lot of modern remakes. Some of the design work is awesome because there's so much more at our, fingertips as far as tools and techniques and inspiration, But the movies themselves sometimes are just like, most of the time, they're just eh. So this design works. He's going in my sword and sorcery area. But yeah, expect the review, man. He's a posable figure. I didn't think he would be that posable either, but I love it. The Cyber Spawn version 2, he is going to be featured in this review along with some other McFarlane stuff, mainly the Interlink 6, which is why you guys tuned in. I will do a review on Checkpoint. I know initially I wasn't going to do a review of him because I didn't like the design that much. But I was always on the fence because I know he has a connection to G.I. Joe via My Favorite Joe. So it was kind of like, this is kind of an important figure, so to speak. And I found him for he was like $6 or something like that. So I was like, shit. And he's complete. Everything that he comes with was in the little baggie with him. So you know what I mean? I'm taking what I got. Not complaining. He is in my collection. He's part of the Cops team now. The version of the Green Goblin that I have over there is a version that I did not know existed. It's not the superposable version. This is a different version. I think the glider is the gimmick or is the special piece, but the figure itself is still pretty awesome. The legs are kind of superposable still. The arms are kind of posable, but kind of have like a pre-molded kind of position, as you can see. But one hand can hold the pumpkin bombs that you see. You can kind of see one sticking out of sitting in the little bay in the front of the glider. But it's an awesome figure. I was like, damn, this existed? Because I thought when I picked him up, he was the superposable one, because that's what I'd been looking for. And as for the sub, man, the sub is nice. At first, I thought it was a modified canopy of the, body of the AC-130, but it's a little skinnier. But it's got a lot of room in it. Very simple construction, but it's very sturdy. It just makes you wonder, what the hell is Hasbro doing? So anyway, I will get into those things within the next month or so. And, it'll be something else for you guys to watch. But for now, we're going to do a big old review. What's up, my ninjas? I'm STRYDENT, and we are here with my review. It's kind of a super review of a bunch of McFarlane stuff that I picked up. You're kind of getting a little bit of insight into the enemy of the enemies that we will face in the my next Fenris Company short. Anytime I end up buying McFarlane figures, it's usually because I have villains in mind and I found, you know, the ones that kind of fit the bill for what I want to do, and these guys are no different. Pretty much I wanted a alien threat, and like I've told you guys before, Fenris Company is kind of like my Contra homage, and I wanted these kind of robotic threats, you know, kind of like the Borg almost, you know. So this guy that you see here, this is the Cyberspawn 2.0. He is the being that was spoken of in that blurb in the beginning when we're talking about the solution. I really dig the look of this figure, and I had fun coming up with this backstory that was interesting, you know what I'm saying, and actually fit what I wanted. His right-hand man is this Manga Spawn, Manga Spawn that you see right there. He's more of a fighter, whereas the Cyberspawn 2.0 is the thinker and the builder. And then you're going to see next is the Interlink 6, which these guys, they are they're kind of the guys to go out and do the work. You know what I mean? They do the dirty work for Cyberspawn. They're his army, essentially. If I can get a bunch of these guys, which I plan on doing, I'll have a bunch of them. But what I like about them is, even though technically you only get them because there is the one thing that they do, which is combine, they do a good job working as individual, you know, figures. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have enough individual differences from each other that they can stand out and work on their own. And that makes me happy, because a lot of the time when there is a gimmick that involves a whole bunch of figures, and that's the way that they're released, they don't work. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes things don't work. And this is not to say that these guys are perfect. You know, don't get me wrong. They have things that I wish that McFarlane did better, but, you know, they didn't skimp on the sculpting. The design elements are all there, so they all have their own little feel to them, and, you know, they don't feel cheap, you know, design-wise. They feel cheap construction-wise, though. And I'm going to get into that in greater detail in my issues and nitpicks section. But looking at them individually, they make pretty good figures. They were actually re-released under the name Cyber Units, I think it was, and they recolored them, and they took away like the pegs and such, so you can't take pieces off of them in order to transform them. As far as I know, you can't. It's very possible that you still could, and you know, I just don't know because I don't have them yet. But from everything I've read, you can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't take them apart and, you know, combine them as, you know, the big old Gestalt. But overall, though, I really do dig the overall aesthetic, and it makes them look perfect for what I was thinking. You know, the enemy that I want my Fenris Company to fight against. So, yeah, that's what we got here. I'm going to go through and review all these bad boys. Alright, so we're going to start off with the big cheese himself. This is Cyberspawn 2.0. Now, I don't even remember what the previous Cyberspawn looks like. I think it's one that I have, which is a figure that I've been using as Brainiac for a very long time. I might put him in here somewhere so you can see what I'm talking about. It's a real cool figure, really tall. But this guy, man, the amount of detail on these figures is insane. I mean, this is kind of what you get a McFarlane figure for. It's just the insane amounts of detail. It's like somebody with OCD and insane, you know, sculpting abilities just went ham on, you know, a design, and this is what you get. In my story, he's going to be known as the Master Builder, kind of like, it almost sounds like a Lego terminology or something, but he's the guy who created the cyber units. Cyber units are all organic beings that have been kind of, you know, Borgized, cyberized or something. You know what I mean? They've been enhanced with cybernetics and whatnot. This dude has the ability to pretty much do that to whatever organic tissue he comes across. And he is not necessarily a fighter. He's extremely logical. So if you have an imagination and skill to boot, you probably will hold your own against him, much like we do in a lot of the video games where we're fighting, you know, cybernetic organisms or robotic organisms that take up a lot of space on the screen and can shoot a whole bunch of crap at you. He looks like compartments open up and he could just lay a whole entire country to waste. And you know, that's kind of sort of what I'm thinking that he will be in my story. But I mean, look at the amount of detail, the beautiful paint job on the figure. I mean, it's just nuts that they were able to do this, and the figure cost, even on the secondary market, I didn't even pay 20 bucks for this guy. And I remember when I saw him years ago in the stores, he only cost about, what, 12 bucks, 8 to 12 bucks, something like that. Yet today we're getting figures that don't even have, you know, a 100th of this detail, and they cost 20 something dollars. You know what I mean? Doesn't make sense. You know, times are changing in a strange kind of way, and it's not logic that's winning. You know, it seems like it's just greed, and that bothers me immensely. But I'm happy with what I got here. Now, his articulation is strange. I'm not going to really go into a separate portion of this about the articulation, but I'm going to tell you that his joints are all swivels, with the exception of, I think, his legs. They're all swivels. So you got to turn pieces to make him do stuff. You got to turn parts for his arms. You got to turn, you got to turn, you got to turn. The legs are pretty intuitive. They work the way normal legs do, which is pretty cool. I like that. I like his height. He's about 7 or 8 inches, something like that, which is pretty dope because I want him to fight Joes and stuff. So he's really going to tower over my Joes. He actually pretty much towers over most of the figures I have. Especially if you're in the 6-inch scale. He's pretty tall. But it's just, I have to reiterate and I have to, you know, stress just how amazing the sculpt is. This is what made me think about going back into my McFarlane mode, because I had noticed that sculpt is something that we're lacking in. You know, a lot of companies today, they will forego sculpt and, you know, rely on the fact that they have a character that's well known. And, you know, that's all well and good and stuff, but it would be nice for the sculpt to match. You know what I'm saying? In my experience with McFarlane Toys, whenever I wanted villains for my Sentai characters to fight, I always went to McFarlane figures. It was just like, that's the thing, you know? So, like, when I was in my Power Rangers Lost Galaxy phase, McFarlane figures. When I was in my Lightspeed Rescue phase, McFarlane figures. Kamen Rider phase, you know, earlier in the 90s and stuff, definitely had McFarlane figures. So, yeah, I love these guys, you know, love them to death. This guy's going to make a cool main villain. And here is his right-hand man. That is going to be the Manga Spawn or Manga Spawn. I don't know why I keep saying it like that. It's a figure I actually had for a long, long time, and I ended up rebuying him because of stuff. So Manga Spawn. This is one of the figures that I had for many years. He was in decent condition, I think. And when I moved, it was one of the figures that got left at my mom's house. Because when I finished college, I sent a lot of stuff to her house because I had a small apartment. And when I got a bigger apartment, I wanted to go over to her house and get the stuff, but she didn't want me to take a lot of things. I don't know. It caused a big rift. It's strange. But anyway, this was a figure me and my brother, we used a lot. Like, we played with this dude, made him fight all kinds of heroes and such. And, you know, we dug the fact that essentially the manga is referring to the style of armor that they designed this figure with, which is kind of in line with a Gundam, which is pretty cool, you know? It's really simple when you think about it. I mean, not the design, but the idea. It's like, hey, Spawn crossed with a Gundam. And then they'll just put manga on the title. You know what I mean? Like, it just seems kind of, it's almost like a goofy idea, but it works really well. You know, the look is really good. The sculpt it's on point. You know, whoever sculpted it, they know their shit. I mean, that looks like a Spawn type Gundam, you know? I dig it. I love the look. I love where the colors are because you immediately know what they're trying to achieve when you look at it. He just, I don't know, it's well put together. It makes a lot of sense. It's, you know, it was a smart design. I mean, from the oversized feet to the tiny little torso and the huge shoulder pads, it's like everything works. And then the bug wings that they added instead of traditional wings. If you know Gundam, they always try to be creative with the types of wings that the Gundams have when they have wings. And the whole bug wing thing, it fits because they're armored, very exoskeletal, and it just works. You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes you see where, how do I put this? It makes you see what the design aesthetic, the intended design aesthetic was, you know, where they drew their inspiration from. And I dig it. I think they did a very good job with that. So, yeah, it's just a dope thing. The backpack where the wings go can actually come off, as you can see here in these pictures, and it's its own entity when you take the helmet off and attach it to the backpack. Looks kind of like some type of stag beetle or something, you know, stag or rhinoceros beetle, or I can't remember, but it's got that big old horn, and I dig that. I like the look. It I don't know, it just works. So I can imagine you shooting this thing off to, like, as a scout or as a I don't know, like a partner to help you fight off whatever to help Spawn, Manga Spawn, fight off whatever he's fighting. I named him Rax because Rax was a cool character in Eternal Champions, and the name sounds alien enough. Speaking of alien enough, here's this familiar but very alien Spawn head that pops up when you remove the helmet. It's kind of cool. It's a throwback to old figures that we don't see anymore. It's well detailed. I like the screaming face. It kind of adds to the character. And I don't know, it works. That's the main thing about this whole design. It works. You're going to hear me say that a lot about many of these figures. They do work conceptually, and even to some degree for some of them, the end result, you know, the actual practice, what they put down and created, actually works really well. This guy doesn't have the greatest articulation, but what he does have, it is serviceable. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can make him swing his sword. You can make him look like he's flying. You can make him you can pull off a lot with him. You know, you can make him look thorough. It's not very hard to do this. So I don't know, I'm really happy with him, you know. And like I said, I bought him a long time ago. I think I bought him back when, what show was it? Mega Ranger was on it was on television. I mean, not here, but in Japan. And I couldn't find Ecliptor So I got this dude to kind of be the stand-in for him, and I was really happy with it. You know, I really dug how he looked standing next to Sentai characters. You know, he was huge, and it just looked good. You know, it had the aesthetic that I was looking for, and it felt like he just felt powerful next to them, like very powerful, very intimidating, very I don't know how else to put it. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just felt like he would beat the shit out of any ranger, you know? And at the same time, he looked like he was, you know, just a capable villain. Like, he just looked good. Standing, you know, next to those guys, in comparison to those guys, you know, stylistically. And I dig that. The sword with the little Spawn symbol, they had to put it somewhere. I noticed, though, a lot of these guys don't have a Spawn symbol somewhere. And you'll see that with the rest of the figures that I am reviewing in this, you know, super Spawn super review. But it's a beautiful figure. Well done figure from a time that, you know, so long past, and they don't do things like this anymore, you know? The amount of ingenuity, the thought, just the idea of making figures this way, they don't do it. McFarlane doesn't even do this shit anymore. You know what I'm saying? Now he straight up does statues, or he does Halo figures. And I like the Halo figures, but even them, there's things that are lacking on them, and a lot of reviewers don't point that stuff out when they review them. This guy's articulation is not the best at all, but like I said, it's serviceable, you know? So if you want him flying, he looks like a massive, powerful tank of a character, and I guess that is, you know, it's enough. It works. So yeah, another worthwhile pickup. I'm happy with him, and for what I want to do with him, I don't really need that much more. You know what I'm saying? So this guy is a definite win, and we are going to move on to the main event here. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit more of like what my thought process was when I decided to go back and dive into all this stuff. So here we go. Here they are. This is the main kill squad for the solution. Variations of these guys are what gets dropped on different planets, and they run through and just hustle whatever's going on. I like the look of these guys so much because they feel separate, you know. They feel like actual individual, you know, cybernetic monsters, you know what I mean? And it's like I said, whenever I wanted monsters, especially to fight like tokusatsu type figures, which I've always had in my collection, excuse me, I always went to McFarlane. They just have that, like if I was directing a tokusatsu film, I would have costumed heroes that look like the SIC figures, and then I would have villains and monsters and shit that look like this. It just makes sense, you know. It wouldn't be goofy, it'd be more grotesque, and I really dig this. As a team, they look formidable. I mean, they look like they're from parts unknown. It's hard to figure out, like, where do you come at these guys from? And I think that's perfect for, you know, my sensibilities and my imagination when it comes to what I'm going to be using them for. LA6, that stands for Left Arm 6. He's a weird looking guy, but he has one of the better forms. It's more of a humanoid form. The thing that's crazy about this guy, and with many of them, is that their anatomy is so different from figure to figure that they could have been alien races. You know what I mean? They could have been all kinds of different things before they were touched by the solution. You know what I'm saying? In my story, but before they became what they are now. And the level of detail, like I said before, it doesn't decrease from figure to figure. If anything, it increases depending on the size of the figure. I don't know, they're just really well sculpted. Right Arm 5. Now this guy's one of my favorites. He just looks very psychotic, very crazy, like something Guar would freaking, you know, a costume Guar would wear or something like that, you know, giant shoulder pads, big old feet. There's a number of them that actually look like Guar creations or something. I mean, look at those blades on the backs of his feet, man. It's like grasshopper legs on steroids, shit on Shirk. It's just nuts. The chainsaw hand, double chainsaw hand, like, come on, man. Just imagine that in a fight scene, like a really cool fight scene. I'm not talking just gory for the sake of gory. I'm talking like a skilled combatant going up against a monster like so. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's pretty damn awesome. The visual itself is just awesome. And you will see that. I really dig it. I just dig it all in all. I mean, from figure to figure, the articulation varies, but the amount of detail on these guys, like, he's wearing a mask right now, but looking at the toy as it is, you can't tell that that is a mask. It just clips on perfectly. When you pull it off, though, you reveal this mangled, almost like a voodoo doctor, a witch doctor's shrunken head type face, you know? But who knows what that is? It looks kind of humanoid, you know? I'll give you a little bit of a closer, clearer look so you can see more of it. And then the paint job, it's just so consistent amongst the figures, like all over the place. You would think that some of the detail would be obscured by such a rusty, dirty paint job, but no, it's actually the opposite. Things really pop out at you. And I can't help but point out this arm with the dual, like almost like a shotgun blaster on top of the two blades, the dual blades. Man, just craziness. And the leg, it's like grasshopper feet on steroids or Shirk or something, or the combination, you know? Just a well done design. I mean, he kind of suffers. One of his legs chooses not to stay on very well. You know, and that finger that you see kind of pointing out is kind of, it's light. So you got to be careful with that one. But overall, he's pretty damn awesome. Left leg 4. This guy looks like he is kind of like the wrecking ball of the team to some degree. He's so armored up. He's got kind of that juggernaut feel, even though he's small. You know, like he's tall, but he's not super big. But he's got these giant feet, well-designed feet. They look cool. It's like an evil alternate universe Mega Man or something. But I love it. I love it. I love it. He just has a very powerful look, almost like an understated power type deal. That cannon, you know what I mean? Like, that's pretty awesome. It looks good. It looks like it'll do some damage, and it's a good long-range weapon. I don't know what to say. I'm spending a little bit more time on him because it's not very much to his design. I mean, other than a lot of texture and paint variation. But I like it. And the helmet comes off. I glued this helmet on because it was a piece that would fall off a lot. So sorry, can't show you his gross face. But maybe one day it'll show up in a video that I'm doing with someone else. Right leg 3. This is an odd figure. He reminds me of the new 52 Parademons. The face is just really crazy. You can tell clearly this was some alien race that got, you know, re-engineered. The wire sticking out of his head. There's actually a lot of tubing and wiring that makes up the top of his head. Almost like they replaced the muscles with weird tensile cord of some sort. I don't know, it's just really strange but cool, you know what I mean? And I'm not usually into like the gory crazy stuff, but like for this it works because they convey the concept of organisms being re-engineered, you know, with technology. Like that gangly hand reminds me of Total Recall. You make me wish I had 3 hands. I got 5 kids to feed. And then the guns on the, you know, underneath the under portion. It's pretty dope. I like the fact that there are little accents. You know, you're seeing all these earth tones all over the place, and then boom, color in his eyes. Boom, color in the gun. You know what I mean? The green color in his eyes and his guns. It's just really well thought out and well executed. And it's not sloppy either. It's not you have green bleeding over into the black and onto the brown and stuff. Like some of the simpler figures that we get today, that the paint is just sloppily applied. You know what I mean? Like there's no excuse. And you look at how complex this design is, how many moving parts, how many pieces, and they painted it masterfully. It really reinforces a lot of what I tell you guys on a regular basis, is that a lot of the excuses you're hearing, they're just that, they're excuses. They're things that could be done better, and people are choosing not to do them better. But, you know, here's an example of how you do this stuff right. Torso 2. This guy just looks like the tank. I mean, obviously because he's got the bigger body, that helps. But I mean, just overall, he looks like, I don't know, like the only piece of him that's probably still organic is somewhere in that head. He's got all the guns, long range, rapid fire, both hands are guns. He has 2 ports on the underside of his arms, and they're for the transformation, that allow you to add the arms, 2 arms from one of the other figures to his body. I mean, this dude just looks like nightmare fuel, like 100%. I mean, they all do, but nightmare fuel. Like, this is that thing you'd be punching, you break your hand, you know? You try to hit him with something, you break that thing. You try to run, he flies after you. You're like, what the? Can I please get some kind of a head start? Got guns on his shoulders with missiles and everything. I mean, it's just like, this guy is the guy in Contra that fills the screen with weaponry or with armament and, you know, artillery, and it's just like a pain dodging all of that stuff. You know what I mean? A pain trying to keep away from him. He's going to be interesting to throw into the mix. Also, look at his legs. I mean, it's kind of hard to see. He's got these weird kind of backwards legs that don't have, like, the feet turn into thrusters, so there's no like toes per se. I don't know, he's just all kinds of alien and just monstrous, and I mean, he almost reminds me of something jacked up that would be on the cover of a Dimmu Borgir album or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, scary ass character, man. Scary ass character. And here's the leader. This is HD01. HD01 is pretty cool in my opinion because he has a very gangly, almost skeletal frame, and he looks like he's kind of a like a thinker, more of the recon person or a sniper. Perfect to go up against Weaponsmith. Perfect. He just has this look like he's the guy who's analyzing all the data and then transmitting the data back to the mothership. You know, those big old antennas sticking up off of his chest, and they extend. I'm not extending them in this video just for the sake of fragility, you know, because they're pretty fragile and I don't want to mess up anything. But he just looks like he is calculating, cold, and just like he does what the mission says to do, and there's no deviation from the plan. Almost like his voice would sound like an old computer, you know, just no words, just sounds. They know what it means. They follow whatever the directive is, and that's it. You can't reason with this guy, you know? I love all the little pistons, and he just has all these little pieces to show you how robotic he is, you know? And he's another one where it's like his head is the only organic piece. His head and like one of his hands, and everything else is just purely robotic. There's hoses, there's you know, pistons and servos all over the place, and it's just like, wow. I tell you, the fact that some folks, this is what they think of in their spare time, it's like, man, I would hate to see your nightmares. Because whenever I think of crazy stuff like this, usually it's to have like a serious battle between a good guy who doesn't look like this and villains that look like this, you know? So you have that contrast. In the Spawn verse, everything looks like this. Everything's jacked up. Everything's gross. It's hard to tell who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, you know? So, you know, not in Spawn himself's case, but in most of these, in the toy line's case. But, you know, as far as this goes, awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I mean, could you imagine if this was the main villain in a film and he was coming after heroes that were capable? The kind of fights they would have, the kind of setups, the fact that he's sniping from far away and directing his team to do stuff, and man, it's just awesome. Pure awesome. So overall, with these guys as individual figures, there's just a lot to love as far as the look of the figures, as far as, you know, paint job, the sculpt and everything. The biggest issue I have with them is their articulation kind of sucks. On a lot of them, the articulation sucks. I mean, I guess it sucks in the traditional sense, you know, so if you want to pose them the way that you would pose your Joes or the way you would pose other people, it kind of sucks. But when you look at them and you realize they don't even have the same anatomy that those figures have, then I guess saying that the articulation sucks is kind of, it's not an accurate statement. The articulation is actually different from what we're used to. But as far as, you know, the concept and the execution of that concept in sculpted form, I mean, this is before 3D printing. This shit's insane, you know? And now we have 3D printing, and no one in America, except for maybe NECA, is actually putting out figures that look this good. Something is up. Something is up. And like I said before, when these guys came out, they were like $8 to $10, maybe 15. But, or maybe 12, I should say, not 15, because most figures weren't about that much until fairly recently. And then now we're paying, you know, almost double that, and the figures don't look that good. You know what I mean? Something is up. I mean, look at how many washes and how much paint variation, even with dirty-ass figures that they're supposed to look dirty, worn, like they were built from junk. And they look immaculate compared to what we're used to these days. You know? Something is up. Something is definitely up, you know? If NECA and McFarlane can make figures that look this good, I'm not saying NECA worked on these, but their figures look this good generally now. If they can do this, and McFarlane can still do this, I mean, their Halo figures, the paint jobs are pretty amazing. It's just the articulation on the lower half of their figures. Same thing with the Walking Dead figures. They're just not that great. But if they can do what they do, there's no excuse for everybody else, you know? Paint's not chipping off of those guys. When the articulation is there, the articulation is there. They're not making their figures out of clear plastic. There's clear plastic on these guys. They're what, 14 years old? And none of it is popping off. Not to say that there aren't brittle parts, but the clear plastic parts are rubbery and they actually stand up. I mean, it's just, they did an awesome job with these guys. Awesome, awesome job. And now for the behemoth, the giant Gestalt. Here he is, almost completely done. I mean, geez, look at that, man. If all those parts were moving around and stuff, my God. I just wanted to really quick kind of show you what he looked like right before I took this, right before I finished you know, building him, or, you know, putting on all the small pieces. But this is a monster of a figure. It's a big boy. Jeez. Whew. So here he is again, kind of almost completely done. He's missing some of the small parts that you will be left with when you finish removing and part swapping and everything to get to this point where you have him standing up straight. Also, I positioned the antennas differently so that they would stand straight up, because the way that they are, they don't stand straight up. They just stick up off of the head, which is HD 01. This is him with everything on him. And I mean, man, he looks like those aliens from he reminds me actually of a Bayformer crossed with the aliens from Battle of Los Angeles. I mean, they just, it looks like this walking scary junk heap that resembles, you know, some humanoid parts and some, you know, just like insectoid parts. And you could imagine if all these parts were moving, how freaking horrific this would look, you know? as it's walking, lumbering towards you. It's just like, ugh. But when you get up close, you start to lose the whole, like, you know, seeing parts of the actual figure. You'd think it would work better from far away. For me, you get up close, you start getting lost in all the intricacies of all of the sculpting. The face, this is a mask that ends up going on top of HD01. Also from behind. This looks nuts. It's hard to tell where each figure ends and the other one starts, even though those thrusters are the feet of the, you know, various robots. It's a wild, like, just crazy ass design. And man, we never get this kind of stuff anymore, you know? This was back when toy companies were trying to innovate, and they weren't trying to just do what everyone else was doing. Everybody had their own thing. The arm, it's transformed into something else, even though that clearly is, you know, when you look at it from other angles, you can tell that that is a humanoid robot just kind of twisted up, you know, making up that shape. You know, that 1 foot, I think that is, what, right leg, whatever, 5 or 4 or whatever, I can't remember the right leg guy. He needs something over his head, but the other one, left leg, is not so bad. Left leg looks cool. As you can see from far away, there's pieces that you use to, I mean, you can see it up close too, but there's pieces that you use from other guys to fill up some of the gaps to make the body part feel more like an entire limb and not like a guy standing there with his hands behind his back. The stand is actually really cool. It looks like a fueling station. It helps hold this thing up because he is kind of back heavy because the joints, a lot of the joints are really stiff, but then there are certain joints, like for the lower legs, that are a little bit, they're weaker, and because so much weight is on the figure, it's hard for it to stand up on its own properly. Some people don't have that issue. Mine has that issue. So the stand is a must. It's going to be strange figuring out how to keep the stand out of the image. But I mean, look at that. Once again, that's the back. You probably could put someone in between there somewhere, you know? Like, it's just so chaotic, but it's controlled, you know, hence the name Gestalt. It's a definite Gestalt. It's like 100% indicative of the name. You know, a lot of times things get these cool names, but they don't actually kind of play to those strengths. They don't actually feel like they are what the name implies. This feels like a Gestalt behemoth, just like I called it, because it's organized chaos to the umpteenth degree. And like I said, look how big he is compared to your Joes. I mean, just imagine the epicness that you can achieve, you know, with some clever posing and clever camera angles and such. There's going to be some cool stuff that I'm going to pull off with these guys, you know. I just can't wait to do it. Cannot wait to do it. I'm in the process of working on this stuff now, so, you know, I can't wait. Bear with me. But just looking at how tall he is and just how many guns, when you combine these 6 characters, how many guns, how many blades, and how many weird claw things are, you know, going to be coming at these guys. It's just like Contra. Perfect for Contra. And you know that Fenris Company is not gonna, they're not gonna shrink down to this. So you guys are gonna see what these guys can do in a situation that was kind of built for these kind of soldiers. You know what I'm saying? Can't wait. And now for the issues and nitpicks. So, one reoccurring theme that you'll see with this guy, and it's probably the biggest issue I have with it, is that he's not very, sturdiness is one issue. A lot of the parts were made so that they can come apart fairly easily, but they didn't think about like making him sturdy enough so that you could make this transformation from you know, robot to giant Gestalt multiple times. They kind of made it so that it almost felt like they made it so you could transform him one time. So one of the issues you'll have are these things, the big old antennas. They connect back here. You see these pegs, and there's holes here.
they're supposed to stay on, but the weight, if you hit the top, it comes off. The other thing is these things, they extend. They're antennas, like I said, right? So just look at that. Look how long that is. That's ridiculous. I mean, I'm trying to keep this in frame and I'm still running out of room. Okay, that's about the whole thing from, you know, one end to end. That's a lot. And then that's going to be on top of this. You know what I mean? So you're going to plug this in and then you're going to have it kind of balancing. So it feels like there are, and there were, issues with engineering. So number one, you end up with all this when you're done. This is every piece that doesn't go on the figures when you're finished. Make sure that you glue these parts together so that you can easily, when you unpeg them from, you know, the head figure, you can still keep them together. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, a lot of stability issues or fragility issues, and a little bit of kind of bubkiss engineering, you know, which is something I'm a stickler on, is engineering. If you're gonna make a figure for our hands, it needs to stand up to the basics that we will do with it. And then, I mean, lots of instructions that just kind of give you an idea of what you're doing, but don't really paint the picture clear enough. So these are the issues I had with this thing.
The bottom line is, this is a unique toy. It reminds you that there was a point in time when everything wasn't tied to a film, everything wasn't tied to Marvel or Disney or DC or Warner Brothers or whatever. Everything kind of, a lot of things had their own little niche that they were filling. And McFarlane kind of had like a very specific audience. They kind of, the cats that love horror stuff, the cats that love the grimier comics, the more alternative side of comics, you know, angels, demons, monsters, you know, that kind of shit. And there are the toy collectors who want some of that in their collection, and this kind of scratches that itch. And for me, it's been a while since I really, you know, like appreciated this kind of thing, because back when I did collect them, I wanted them to get beat up by my heroes, and we weren't really collecting them so that we could keep them for many, you know, years to come. Now I appreciate the sculpts more. Well, you know, in the years after that, I've come to appreciate the sculpts more, and, you know, becoming more of a collector, you know, based on lack of time to sit around and play, you know what I'm saying? So it's cool to see all these, you know, these figures that have these specific aesthetics that we don't see much anymore. So, you know, if that's what you're looking for, you need to go back and find these guys. I managed to get the Interlink 6 for all of them together for 50 bucks plus shipping. It took a very small amount of haggling, but I got them for 50. They usually go for like 130, 150. So I got extremely lucky with them. Everyone else that you see in this video was, I think, under 15 bucks a piece on eBay. So strangely enough, as awesome as all these designs are, they're not expensive. And it seems like, you know, while people are paying an arm and a leg for, you know, Marvel Legends, there's figures out there that look better. You know, they're going to look better on your shelf if you don't really play with your figures. Some of them are playable, but, you know, they look better than your Marvel Legends and some of your DC UCs. Most of your DC UCs, you know, not the DC Direct and DC collectible figures. They look about as good, but just more detail than all of those at like a fraction of the cost. And, you know, you're getting more in the package. So, you know, if that's what you, if you're looking for that sort of thing, this will be right up your alley. And I know I've got a couple ninjas out there that this is kind of your thing, you know? So if it is, you guys might want to jump on this. I mean, this is S-class quality stuff right here. These guys are not super expensive, like I said. And I don't know, there's just tons of quality here. So, you know, this has been my look at the Spawn Interlink 6, Manga Spawn, Cyber Spawn version 2.0, and two other figures that I'm not naming because they're in the background. But they're quality figures. You should jump on them. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thanks for watching. You guys have been great. Peace outside.